Hello, everybody. Welcome to the LIPP MEN on Sports on UFL. I am Sportcat. I am the producer and mere button pusher of this show. So I am going to bring out the two hosts, Daddy Lippman and also Junior Lippman. So I'm gonna hide down here in a corner. You guys do such a great job. Well, that's not the right corner.
That's a whole new setup. I haven't seen that one before.
Me either. Where the heck that came from. So
I don't know what's happening here. You're making me dizzy.
It's all buttons I'm pushing. I don't know. By the way, the chat is open. We are live on Twitch, LinkedIn, Kick, Facebook, Trovo, the Parapost Network, maybe the Fuel Network. Who really knows? We are live on YurgsRadio.com, and you can listen there if you can't watch us on YouTube. And always remember to come back and follow, like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to call in and ask either of the LIPP Men any questions, there's 1-888-88-YERGZ, 1-888-88-YERGZ on your phone pad. So, okay, carried away, boys. I'm done.
All right. Well, thanks, Glenn. Hopefully you're not done completely. How's it going, Jake?
Oh, it's going well, and thank you, Glenn, for getting us started. It's always nice to hear your voice. I appreciate everybody covering up last week to make do without me, but we're back this week and better than ever. How are you?
Yeah, they missed you. Everyone missed you.
Yeah, I made some crazy picks. So
there was a hue and cry. I mean, yeah, we did miss your picks. I mean, no. and so you couldn't live in shame for me getting another 4-0 weekend.
It keeps happening.
Or live in pride.
Do you have the script or something? I mean, I know you like WWE, but this isn't supposed to be WWE here in the UFL.
Actually, it's a work. Remember, the Rock's involved, the whole thing. So meanwhile, this is a true story. So I'm tuning in to watch the late game yesterday, San Antonio and Arlington. And I'm on the right channel. I have it set to the DVR so I can confirming it's on the right channel. But sometimes they move it to, to FS1 or FS2, depending what's on. But no, that's not happening. And the reason I'm mentioning all this is because there's bowling on. And it's the Pro Bowling Association on a major network. I'm like, what is going on here? And then all of a sudden, like, I'm sure I'm in a fever dream because whoever wins, Baron Corbin, the wrestler, comes over to him and presents the guy with a WWE title belt with, I guess, PBA side plates on it as part of his prize, which is probably like a $599 value or whatever it is. And I'm like, this can't possibly. I must have fallen asleep on the couch looking for the UFL. I need to wake myself up. This can't possibly be happening. I'm not seeing Baron Corbin with bowling at a WWE title belt, but yes, it was, and then it breaks into the game. Huh.
Nobody cares.
What? Who was that? That must be the lingering effects of that fever dream. Anyway, folks, it is week 8 of the UFL regular season in the books. Week 11 of the LIPP Men on the UFL. And some of the questions this week is, was this trap week part due the revenge? Maybe. It seemed like people were trying. What about the haves and the have-nots? This has been a league that's often been defined pretty easily by haves and have-nots once you figure it out. But it seems like the haves versus the have-nots might be narrowing at a pretty useless time of year for it to narrow for those have-nots. But I guess if they had a 16-game season, maybe that's a little optimism. I did get a few late word rumors. So these are just rumors, but it does come from UFL Hub, which is not the same as News Hub. And that is expansion may be on hold for 2025, which is not great news for the league. And Michigan and I believe Houston they're considering relocating both of them to places where they'll get better attendance. No real shocks there. I am a little bit surprised about Memphis, but not after Glenn revealed to us that Fred Smith is basically buying all the seats in the place so that the team stays there. Fred Smith's from FedEx. And I forgot the third rumor, so it's not particularly important. Anyway, let's talk about Week 7 ratings. St. Louis at Birmingham. On Fox, it was 758,000 on the aggregate. That's not great news, but the good news is that it peaked towards the end as the game was. It was a very close game, as we discussed last week, and it peaked between 7 and 7:15 p.m. they rate these things by quarters. So those of you who are not crazy about following ratings, they do it by quarters. But it peaked at 1.452 million. So there is interest there, or people just tuned into Fox to see what was coming on next.
Could be a little bit of both, but that's a pretty impressive number. I feel like we haven't seen a number like that since week 1.
Yeah, and this was the two best teams. I believe there was one game that averaged 1.3 that was in prime time on ABC on a Saturday night. And we did talk about last week that Fox in the upfronts did say that Friday nights, they got rid of SmackDown. SmackDown's found a new home on USA, which is where Raw is now and won't be in 2025. They're going to be on Netflix. But the point of this whole thing is not to talk about wrestling, though I can hardly resist, is that 8 to 10 slot, Fox has said that they're going to fill it up with sports, including college football, college basketball, and UFL Friday night primetime games. So that's 10 games, maybe a playoff game. I don't know, but I think that'd be an interesting experiment, and we'll see how it goes next year. But I mean,
a shift in the schedule, which will be interesting to see. We've come accustomed to this 2-game Saturday, 2-game Sunday format. So throwing in a Friday game, which game do you eliminate? That'll be interesting to see how it all works out.
It sure will. I mean, hopefully afternoon games, especially the ones that are going to be on ESPN2 or FS1, with other conflicts for some of the other sports that are bigger draws like baseball, NBA, and NHL playoffs, things with less conflict. The reason why it's most significant, listen, networks can do pretty much whatever they want, but Fox is a half owner of the league, and usually on upfronts, you are selling advertisers on your products. Now, the advertisers and the sponsors know the score, but you don't usually promote something in the upfronts if you intend to can it. So despite the expansion maybe being put on hold, I would take the upfronts as a pretty solid sign of season 2, which, hopefully means season 2 of the LIPP Men on UFL. I mean, maybe by then we'll both be men. I don't know, or maybe I'll revert to a kid.
I think the odds are more likely that we'll both be boys.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. Memphis at Arlington on ESPN, 586,000 aggregate. Michigan at DC also on ESPN, 665,000 aggregate. San Antonio at Houston, 572,000 on ESPN. So ESPN not ranking up the big numbers. I think I'm told that's always the case, and that actually the networks are fairly pleased with those numbers. That said, those of you who know me from the wrestling world know that networks rarely say bad things about the shows that are on. They say bad things about them once they're gone. So allow me to be a bit of a cynic. Jake, what do you think?
I mean, I definitely like the million numbers, or closer to a million than this 500,000 number that we're getting closer and closer to. But I can't say that those numbers are terribly surprising. And I think what it goes to show is that the UFL social media team is doing their job. I mean, when you can put together an exciting, high-profile game, people are tuning in. And especially when you consider it's the St. Louis Battlehawks with 40,000 people in the stands, I think that shows that they are doing the right things on social media, and the UFL, their strategy is working. And going back to what you opened with, is if we're pausing expansion, that is what's most promising to me. I think as we can get the talent spread across the league a little bit better, and maybe attract some higher level talent, I think those numbers consistently will go up. But I definitely, there is a little bit of a pause when you go from 1.4 million and then you say 556,000 right after. So definitely two different sides of the coin, but I think there is some promise there. And I've been kind of cynical on the league so far with all their numbers, ratings, viewership, attendance. There's a lot of improvements that we could see, but I do think we're seeing some promise here.
I agree. And I think that maybe the relocation of two teams rumor sort of is consistent with pausing expansion rumor, because you don't want to expand if you're going to move into 2 new cities as well, because you don't want to have to market in 6 cities or 10 cities, depending on what your marketing is going to be. You may just want to focus on those 2 cities and getting a healthier league with healthier fan bases. I mean, there was a gentleman on one of the Facebook groups who said they should give Orlando a team, but they shouldn't call them Orlando. They should call them Florida, and they should play 5 games in 5 different Florida cities. I'm like, I understand where you're going with that, but logistically and money-wise, that's very difficult to plan. It's very expensive. You have to get the stadium availability for all of those dates. And it sort of undercuts the point of building a local fan base. Like almost every other sport tries to get a city, not a state. I mean, maybe if you're in, Colorado, you're only going to have one major league town, but they still call them the Denver Broncos. But Arizona may go for a wider berth just because that's their marketing choice. But usually, your fan base is from your city and suburban areas. So I don't know.
Yes, and at first I agreed with you, but thinking about it more, I do think it could make sense in this format, especially this format where the teams aren't practicing in that city. So it's eliminating a lot of that community outreach that they can do and bonding with the community, as opposed to the NFL where, if you live nearby Owings Mills, Maryland, where the practice facility is, you're going to see those Ravens players at the grocery store and restaurants. In the UFL, you don't get that because they're training in Texas and then they're flying to wherever the stadium is, whether it's a home or an away game. So it could make sense in this format. And I kind of think of this from an MMA lens where, this is the regional scale. So let's go to a lot of towns. Let's develop really strong relationships there and build into being, at that state level and playing in these big stadiums. It might actually do them some justice, if you take a game to Tampa and then you take a game to Jacksonville and you go to all these different cities in Florida at smaller venues that you're able to fill. It might help you get that outreach and, maybe it would work. I'm coming around to this idea the more I think about it. So I don't think that's what they would do. I think it's too untraditional. And I think in something as pricey and expensive as this, you're going to stick with what works, what is a good game plan, and you're going to take as little risks as possible. I mean, the investment itself is enough of a risk. So I don't know, but I do like that idea. I could see that working.
I just don't think they have the budget for that kind of travel. Let's also be, if you make a schedule and you want to get the Tampa Bay Stadium, let's just say you want it for today, you want it May 20th. And it turns out that Metallica is there May 20th. You have to change the entire schedule around the Metallica concert because you're not bumping Metallica. Or you get Miami for May 20th and Taylor Swift decides to go on concert and she was going to be in Miami, but only if she goes 12 days instead of 9. They're bumping you right out of there for Taylor Swift. So I don't know. I think the beggars can't be choosers. And listen, I don't know if you reserve a stadium, if it's absolutely yours or if they reserve rights or whatever. I'm not that deep into it. But anyway, interesting thought. Just wanted to pass that along. Listen, people are talking and people are thinking about ideas. So,
and that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
The more engagement, the better.
I'm getting into more fights on Twitter. It's very exciting. I had to mute some people. I blocked a couple people. The usual. I'm polarizing. So, couple pieces of news. Back in like week 2 or 3, we noted that there was a union grievance filed because the players of the week were not getting their bonus. This union grievance was resolved not by settling the player of the week bonus situation, but in some ways something maybe unprecedented and I think better. They decided upon a player raise for all of the players. Now, it didn't say how much. It could be $25 for all I know. But a raise for everybody instead of those bonuses is good. Now, I've had pushback from that saying, yeah, but it's going to hinder the competitiveness. The players aren't going to try. I think the players are out there to win anyway. But I think a raise for everybody is a sign that the league has more money than anticipated. And I would think other kind of incentivized bonuses are coming next, but I actually think a raise for all the players, even if it's $1,000 each of them for the season, is better than a player of the week bonus, which was $1,000, by the way.
Yeah, and you know what? I think I have a couple thoughts about this, and we talked about this at the beginning of the season a lot. Each of the players are making the exact same amount of money. It's not like the quarterback's getting paid more than the kicker. Everybody's getting paid the same. So I think every player that's in this league, especially since it's not established, nobody's out here for, everybody's obviously out here for the money, but nobody's out here for the money. They're here to get themselves to the next level, to get to the real money. Every day is a competition to prove you're better than every single person on the field, not just the people in your position group. So I think with a level set payroll, I like that idea of just boosting up everybody's pay. Especially if you're trying to develop football in the future generation. What do they tell you as a kid? Football's a team sport. There's no I in team. So player of the week, that goes against everything. But saying, here, you guys are doing great. The league is being successful. We're finding some profits. Let's trickle down some money to you. Here's a little Christmas bonus. I think that's better. And if the bonus is only $1,000 for player of the week, 8 teams are playing. There's 4 different games on national broadcasts potentially. $1,000 doesn't cut it for me. That doesn't motivate me as a player. But knowing that everybody on my team is going to get a raise at the end of the year if we do well and the league's financially, strong, or there's at least the possibility of everybody getting that raise. I don't know. I like that a lot, and I think for the players that's what's most important, because we're here to motivate the players and get them and develop them into the next level. And I think by making sure that they're paid enough so that they can do this full time and not have to get another job and focus on other things, I think that's all you can ask for.
Yep. Well, I think there's room for both, but I actually think this is good, and I think it goes into effect this season. There weren't a lot of details on it. The press release was very sparse on all of it. Didn't say the amount, didn't say when, but I'm presuming that if they make $55,000 a year, which is what they make, if the agreement was to $56,000, I believe that they'll get that this year. As far as incentives are concerned, I'm for all incentives, and hopefully there'll be both. What I don't know is if the UFL wasn't just planning to give them a raise next year anyway, and they're like, whatever, we'll do it this way and get rid of this grievance. But whatever, it need not be.
Probably a little bit of both.
Could, in fact, be. All right, so we know that some of the playoffs and the locations. We got plenty of weeks to talk about that, but Birmingham at Michigan versus Michigan is going to be at Birmingham Saturday, June 8th at 3 p.m., right now slated for ABC. So ABC in a pretty good time slot. Birmingham versus Michigan should be an amazing game. Wearing my Michigan shirt, as you all know by now. I don't choose my shirts by accident. A couple of transactions. I don't want to get too crazy with the transactions, but as far as news and notes, A.J. McCarron did not start this week. St. Louis signed a quarterback. D.C. had a bunch of people who went out. Kelvin Harmon, probably their best offensive player. Maybe no probably about it. And also their number 2 quarterback, DeAndre Francois, which, we don't know what he could do or couldn't do, but he's also out for the season, and an offensive tackle, Tommy Champion. I'm not going to tell you I know much about him other than his name is fantastic. But if you lose your top player, your backup quarterback, and one of your tackles, probably doesn't bode well for you.
And Te'amu got hurt at the end of the game.
And since we're going through injuries during the game, Wes Hills got injured basically on his first offensive play, and is probably out for the rest of the season, which isn't very long. But but I am presuming that doesn't just mean the 2-game regular season. I'm presuming it means the playoffs, but maybe not. I mean, who knows? We'll find out. So our first game this weekend was Memphis at Michigan. They boasted 9,370 fans in attendance, but it's actually 99,370 because Tom Brady was at the game and he counted for at least 90,000 people because his aura is just that big. So I'm all proud of myself because I'm I really like this Lewerke kid. He's going to be starting quarterback. And yeah, he is the starting quarterback for the opening drive. After that, it wasn't. They put in Perkins. But it didn't seem to matter. Whoever was playing was pretty good. So we've got yes, there's the aura right there. Look at that, man. Jeez. I mean, not a care in the world. The only guy I know to survive a roast and be just fine with it. Okay. Even though he said I wouldn't do it again. Too late. You already did it, pal.
I can't do a Misfits roast, though. But I can't talk about that. We'll be banned.
Okay. All right, then. All right. So the opening drive, we have a touchdown. And, of course, the missed extra point. The touchdown went to someone named Hakatini.
Cole
Hakatini. Yeah. Missed extra point. That's where Hills got hurt. And Perkins comes in at quarterback for drive 2. Cookus, he's back at quarterback. His opening pass is a beautiful catch to Dawood Davis. He just runs all the way down the field. Nobody's getting close to him. Extra point missed. It looks like, wow, Memphis there's no quit in them. Perkins comes in at quarterback for drive number 2. Colburn, he's rushing, he's catching, he's going everywhere. He gets a rush TD. The extra point, of course, is missed. So, it's a pretty back and forth shootout going on here in the first quarter. Cookus comes back in and promptly throws an interception to Michigan. We have the quarterbacks doing alternating drives at this point on Michigan. But Lewerke doesn't really seem to move the ball this way. So we get it back to Memphis, and there's an offensive penalty, then a fumble. It is recovered by Cookus, For a loss. It was a strange little batted ball, but just not in sync. We then get Perkins coming in for his drive, and he throws one to Devin Gray for a 50-yard touchdown pass. Extra point missed, of course. They actually, at first, it looked like they got the 2-point conversion, but a official review showed there was an offensive penalty on it. They got that rescinded. In any event, they got the 6. It's 18-6 at this point for Michigan. Memphis, despite the score, played pretty well on defense. I mean, they were giving the ball back to Michigan in pretty good position. So Memphis is driving. It looks like they're going to make the game a lot closer than I want them to. But the quarterback gets sacked on a big 3rd down after the 2-minute warning expires, so they have to settle for a field goal. So it's 18-9 at halftime. Okay, opening play of the second half, Cookus gets sacked, and then he looks like he tries to pass it, and it doesn't work out, and he gets hurt again. Once again, Cookus seems to get hurt like every single game. So a guy named Josh Love comes in at quarterback. And actually, the team sort of seems to respond to Josh Love. They love Love. Everyone loves Love. What the world needs now
is love.
Yeah. What the world needs more of is love. And
I believe this was his former team that he stepped in against.
It was. They were saying he was the starting quarterback for Michigan last year. So they were talking about a little revenge, but you couldn't see it on his face. Anyway, he throws a touchdown catch to Davis. Missed extra point, of course, the bane of my existence. It's now 18-15 on behalf of Michigan. Bates, uncharacteristically, misses a field goal. I will say this, that Josh Love had a much better rhythm with Memphis. They kicked another field goal, tie up the game. It's 18-18. Perkins now seems to be more of the primary starting quarterback. It's not Lewerke Perkins. So Perkins is playing well. He moves around his feet. He brings an extra dimension. Colburn, rush TD, extra point missed, of course. So it's 24-18 at this point. Notice no extra points have been made. The Michigan defense takes over on a fourth quarter turnover. They achieve a first down right after the 2-minute warning, and that's basically the end of the game. That was a ballsy 4th and 1 call, though, because they had time to play with, but they got the first down, and the game ends 24-18. Coach Nolan and the staff, bringing it in. They clinch a playoff spot. They're 6-2. Memphis falls to 1-7, though they didn't phone it in. So, thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, and full disclosure, this is the one game this week I watched 0 of. Going into it, Michigan with a backup quarterback and Memphis with a backup quarterback is just not the most attractive matchup when you're busy. But I will say, in all of what I've read and what I've seen, first of all, seems like Michigan just did what Michigan does. They play defense first, they get in scrappy games, and they find a way to outwill you. And it doesn't really matter who's been a quarterback, running back, receiver. They just kind of do their thing. It's defense first, grinded out football. And nothing wrong with that. I think we do need to talk Bryce Perkins a little bit more. This is a guy who spent a couple of years with the Rams. He bounced around a little bit in college, Arizona State, Virginia University. But you kind of hit on it. He's a mobile quarterback. He's comfortable on his feet, and he's a guy that you can move the pocket with, and that's where he thrives. So I think the season's over, but I think they'll be able to find some new ways to be interesting on offense for these last couple of weeks. And I think for Bryce Perkins, this is an amazing opportunity for a guy who, like I said, he spent some time with the Rams. He might have been on the practice squad when they won the Super Bowl, but he spent about 2 or 3 years with them, and this is a guy, put some good film on tape, and you know what? You can be seeing yourself as a third quarterback in the NFL next year. So it'll be very interesting to see what he does. And when you look at his stats, he was 7 of 9, so he was hyper efficient, 106 yards on the air, and he's got a touchdown, and he was able to run the ball a little bit. And I think Colburn, who we talked about a lot, he had a great game. On the stat line, 93 yards, 2 touchdowns. What more can you ask for him? And I think when you look at it, you actually said that you thought Love looked a lot better than Cookus. So just reading the stats again, I didn't watch this game live, so I can only speak to what I know. But Case Cookus, 10 for 16, 179 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. It's not a bad line. Josh Love, 9 of 12 for 56 yards and 1 touchdown. He threw for 123 more yards, Cookus, than Love. So Love was a little bit more efficient. Cookus was going down the field. And one thing we'll talk in a later game is I do feel like these quarterbacks, as they get a game or two, they feel a little bit more comfortable to start throwing the ball downfield. So it'll be interesting to see if he opens up and takes advantage of this opportunity if he continues to get it, which he probably should, looking at how the game panned out. But very interesting game, and you brought it up. Both kickers missed field goals, and that was something we saw a lot of this week. I mean, kickers have been amazing in the UFL, and we saw a lot of mistakes. It was raining over by me, so I don't know if the weather had some sort of impact on it, but some really bad kicking this week, which is very abnormal for the UFL. But that's what I've got on this game.
Yes, not that we need to belabor a conversation about the Memphis quarterbacks, because it may well be the least important thing of the week. But it still counts. But a lot of those yards was that one pass to David Davis, which, that was at least 50 yards of it. And while Love didn't throw very dramatically, the watching the team, they just seemed to operate more like a football team and play a more controlled offense and just seemed a little bit less chaotic. But you're right, the numbers are undramatic. So anyway, ESPN2 aired Houston at Birmingham before a crowd of 10,245 people. Reed Sinnett was at quarterback, and in the first drive, he throws an interception, and Birmingham catches it. They bring it back to their own 48. Then Houston has a defensive penalty, so it turns a 1st and 10 to a 1st and 5. So at this point now they're on Houston's, I guess, 43. I'm sorry, they were on the Houston 48. Martinez gets the start at quarterback. Shouldn't be a controversy, but there was some question last week as to whether they would start sitting players. And I remember my position, which was, of course, the correct one, is like, no, you're still going for playoff position. You're not sitting anyone yet. Maybe next week you do, or maybe week 9. I'm not even sure about that. But anyway, didn't happen. Deion Kane, touchdown pass. Extra point miss. So even our vaunted Birmingham team, which did show some weaknesses last week, no, they didn't repeat the special teams botches that they did. And apparently only one of their starting linebackers from the beginning of the season is still in the lineup now, but they still have a pretty terrific defense. Michigan and Birmingham still are the most professional football teams to play. San Antonio might be the most unpredictable and interesting in different ways. Nolan Henderson comes in at quarterback for drive 2. They like this kid. There's a lot of talk that he should have been getting the start way earlier, probably 3 or 4 games ago, probably should have, but I guess they didn't want to give up. Anyway, he doesn't do much with his first drive. There's a kickoff, and Birmingham returns it to the 50. Benjamin Victor, former Raven, at least for 2 games, had a touchdown catch where he broke 2 tackles. Great effort. The extra point was missed, which is the norm here. Maybe I should only start talking about what the extra points are converted.
Those are shocking.
They pretty much are. So now Sinnett is back in. First play, false start. So I don't even know what's happening here. But then Mark Thompson comes in with what I think Houston's been waiting to see more of all year, a gigantic touchdown run. And Hall with a 2-point good conversion. So all of a sudden, it goes from 12-0 to 12-8. There was a coach's super challenge on there being no holding call on the offense. It was not upheld. Weird choice. Skip Holtz has now done this 2 weeks in a row where he's done super challenges on strange plays for non-penalty calls. He won his challenge last week, so I guess my criticism was, but it didn't. I don't know. It felt like a gimme, but this one wasn't. You lose a timeout. Maybe that's going to come into play. It's a short. It's a close game at this point. Henderson back at quarterback. and we get a missed field goal. Birmingham, they advance 4 field goals, so it's now 15-8 field goal. Then Martinez comes in and throws a big interception to Houston, giving them hope. Mark Thompson with a second rush touchdown. They missed their extra point, of course, so it's now 15-14. But then Martinez sort of redeems himself with a rush TD. There was a 2-point conversion to Jonah Thomas, but there was a crazy penalty and it was overturned. So we're sitting at 21-14 at this point. So Birmingham, not their best game, but they craftily continue to, keep the lead up. We get to the second half. We have a pass from Martinez to Amari Rogers, who he was the offensive penalty earlier in the game, so he redeems himself. They do a 3-point conversion to Jordan Thomas, so now it's 28-14. So now Birmingham, they're like sort of showing off, but Nolan Henderson showing legs of his own. He rushes for a touchdown during the extra point conversion, not just as a miss, but it's an interception, but it doesn't matter on an extra point. So score stands at 28-20. Martinez with a second rush TD. I think he accounted for 5 touchdowns this game, 2 rushing, 3 passes. It was a 1-point conversion made by Roundtree the third. So we're now at 35-20. There's a 4th and 1 late in the game with Houston having the ball. They fumble. Henderson gets hurt. Birmingham recovers. And you think the game is over there, but it's not. There's a Braden Bowman touchdown catch for Houston, and there is a 2-point conversion. So it is now 35-28, but those of you who are faint of heart, don't worry, fear not. Birmingham ends up winning the game. The score remains where it is, 35-28. So despite cracks in their armor the last 2 weeks and making it a lot closer than I think anyone in Birmingham wanted to see, they remain 8-0, 15-game winning streak, and Houston is at 1-7. So, Houston didn't quit just like Memphis didn't quit. So I guess some credit to their coaching staff, but Houston's defense not looking great, but their offense didn't do them any favors. Jake, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, that was Birmingham's 15th win in a row dating back to last year. That's impressive. And I want to say they show no signs of slowing down and stopping now, but they did. This is not the best team that they ever in the world that they played against. This is a team that in the Roughnecks that I've tried to support. Ever since Mark Thompson came back, I've kind of been like, this is the guy that they need to turn around their year. And, that's what they did last year when he came back from being injured. And we finally saw him break out a big play this week. We still haven't seen it from him consistently, but, Birmingham's just doing the thing. They're winning game after game after game, and it should be no hot take that Martinez is going to be the MVP of the league. I don't think you bench him for Matt Corral. I get it. You want Corral to get film, but I don't like it when players sit too long before the playoffs. I think it always fails in the NFL. Year after year, you see it not work for teams. You see quarterbacks and offensive lines be all screwed up. I just don't like it. Excuse me. But Adrian Martinez, 3 passing touchdowns to 3 different receivers. You mentioned Amari Rogers, Deion Kane, and Benjamin Victor. He then had 2 rushing touchdowns to add to it, so a 5-touchdown performance. He contributed in all of their scores. That doesn't include the fact that this week he had 6 carries for 44 yards. That's a great 8 yards per carry right there, and not a number that's easy to accomplish. And when you think about it, he's been running a lot more than 6 and throwing a lot less than the 31 times that he did this week. So I think it shows the confidence and the trust they have in him. He's doing more with less, which is very impressive, something that you want to see out of a quarterback. If there's a shoe-in for the NFL after this, besides Jake Bates, because despite his miss, he's still a shoe-in, I think it's this guy. I don't know how Adrian Martinez does not get an opportunity with an NFL team now. And take the Ravens for an example. They have an old Josh Johnson and a bunch of young guys competing for the job. Well, Adrian Martinez is still young too. This guy has the sky's the limit for him. His potential out the wazoo, and he's put this team in a position where they can win the entire thing. And so I think they're positioned well. don't rest the starters. Keep them in that flow all the way through until you win the championship, and then you can rest your starters. But I mean, this was a gutsy win. It was a gutsy performance from the Roughnecks, and I think that this is a game for Birmingham that it's one of those games that builds character. It's not the ideal win, but for the long term, this win is very beneficial for them.
Yeah, some of the discourse that's been going on, there's two things that drive me mad on commentary. One is how they're constantly plugging gambling. I've ranted about that before. No need to rant about it again. It's too much. The other thing is how they mention, yeah, you want the players to get film. No, the player wants the player to get film. The coach and the team wants to win and win championships. And so
that's where I'll disagree with you. Yes, the player wants film. That's why the player is here. The player is here to make a little bit of money and get to the league. But I think that it's in the team's best interest as well for the players to get film and make it to the league. The more players that make it to the league, and you see on those NFL broadcasts, such and such player signed from the Houston Roughnecks in the UFL after X stats the year before, that's free brand promotion, free marketing. They don't plan to keep these players for year after year after year. I mean, in an ideal world, sure, but they're realistic. This is a business here. These players are here for a year, 2 years max, and then they're moving on to the next for their next opportunity. So I actually think that this is exactly what they want. They truly want to get these players to the NFL because it only benefits them when the players succeed. And even if it's not the NFL, if it's the CFL or another team in the UFL, the players or the teams, that's how they thrive. That's how they grow. So I disagree with that statement.
Counterpoint. And I think this applies to the Canadian Football League. I think it applies to the former XFL, the USFL, this UFL. And I think it applies, and it's been shown time and time again with various wrestling promotions. When you tell your fans that your players are not good enough, that there's something better out there for them, or you bring in another promotion's talent as your champion in wrestling, and you tell your fans, our guys aren't good enough, we need to bring in, Kenny Omega from AEW to be your champion for a year. When you tell them what you are, as Maya Angelou said, you should listen. So if you're just focusing on these guys are going to the NFL, I understand the thought process, but that's not how you build a fan base. Your fan base isn't there to watch developmental. Your fan base is there to get behind a team. The fact that one guy makes it to the NFL or whatnot is bragging rights, and that's fun as heck. But you want to get behind your guys, and you want to be thrilled. It's like NXT with WWE. You want to love Trick Williams, and when Trick Williams makes it to the main roster, you want to be thrilled for him. But you want to enjoy him. You want to think that he's great, and you're watching NXT because you're watching not just the stars of tomorrow, but the stars of now in that brand. And I think that marketers make that mistake over and over. Listen, if that was going to work, it would have worked for the UFL the first time. The second time, it would have worked for the USFL the first time. The second time, it would work for the Arena League. It would work for the CFL. It doesn't. You need to focus on your guys to build your fans. And then when you build your fans into national or international fandom, then maybe you start focusing on some of the other things. But that's just one man's.
I don't know. Counterpoint to your counterpoint in WWE or wrestling, when you're bringing in that champion, the current champion that they're getting, you still have under contract. You're still planning to utilize them. It's part of the storyline.
But you're talking about WWE, who has exclusive contracts. I'm talking about Impact Wrestling, who brought in 2 AEW wrestlers back-to-back to be their champions for over 14 months. And you know what happened to Impact since then? They went from 233,000 viewers per week to 80,000 viewers per week within the last 3 years. Coincidence? I think not.
Yeah, but it's a difference when your current champion's getting replaced with someone else's champion. If you have someone that goes to the championship and they go to the next level, then you're replacing them with someone new and someone fresh that brings something different to your fans. And I think when you're looking at a football league like the UFL, I mean, this is a developmental league. Who are the fans of the UFL? Well, it's the players' families and friends who are following them. And it's the community, the diehard football fans that want to say, I saw this player from the ground up. I was a fan of this player before he even got to the league. And so that's that unity and pride of the league. And I think you see it in MMA is the easiest correlation, or soccer. You see guys from different leagues around the world making it to the Premier League and thriving. And that makes those leagues from around the world stand out and shine and prove that they're legitimate and prove that they can develop talent. Same thing with MMA. You see 8 LFA fighters on a card, and you're like, wow, the LFA is really good. Or CFFC, you see 5 CFFC fighters, and 3 of them were champions on a card, and you're like, wow, like, this is impressive. This is something that I want to check out. And this is the approach that the UFL needs to take. They're not the top of the top. They're not the cream of the crop. They are at the bottom. They're building their way up to the top, and you got to build some way.
I believe that ancillary side effect will happen anyway by players advancing to the NFL. College football is built on players being drafted, but college football doesn't say we're developmental for the NFL. They're like, no, watch the Ohio State University.
But that's in the name. It's college. College is development. You have to kind of promote what you are, and college in and of itself means development. So they don't need to promote that because it's a given. The UFL needs to promote that. It's not a given. It's not obvious.
Glenn?
Take what let's just use a recent example here. Caitlin Clark. I mean, college basketball, female, she's probably going to be one of the greatest of all time. Who really followed the Indiana WNBA team before this? Now they've got ESPN contracts. They're on prime time. Last I looked, they had one, but they're selling out home games. It is about players. It's about the players and how they develop them. And they're of course they're down on Caitlin. Oh, she's not doing this. She's 4 games in. Come on, give me a break. 3-4 games in. So yeah, it's all about that. It's a play.
Well, you know what I have to add to this? El gato no tienes los zapatos.
I'm sorry, this is only an English broadcast.
Well, just like Tommaso Ciampa said in defending Timothy Thatcher, it makes perfect sense. So anyway, back.
And by the way, I just want to throw this out, Jake, your kicker. He's not going to go to Tennessee because that's the only team that he can't score in is Tennessee. So he's not coming to Tennessee. All right,
hey, but Tennessee needs every little bit of help they can, and Caitlin Clark, I think, is a great mention of that, because who are all these new fans to Indiana? They're the fans of Iowa. They're those fans that followed her in college. So you got to bring your fans from somewhere. They're not going to just show up magically. You can't create demand.
Number one selling jersey. Look at the money.
14 people from Iowa. The outro should be Tennessee by Arrested Development. So that's what I've gotten from this. All right. DC playing at St. Louis, and I have learned that I am incorrect. That Caw is not spelled C-A-W; it's spelled K-A-W. Wow! What in the Independence Civil War is going on there?
I think they just need to change their logo.
Oh my goodness! Look at you! Oh, holy moly!
White House down type of stuff.
You're going to put us on watch lists right now. I mean, the Secret Service is knocking on my door immediately, and that's going to come in.
You'll be next.
I swear, I didn't do it. I have no interest in doing it. I knew nothing about it.
Seriously, this is one case where I am innocent. Sheesh! All right, so St. Louis against the St. Louis Cardinals home game still has 32,403 fans. No Tom Brady, so I'm not giving them 30 extra thousand people. Tom Brady or Kurt Warner. In fact, 32,403 people were there. St. Louis, a win and they're in. That is the story of this game. Can they do it without their starting quarterback, A.J. McCarron? So they're starting a quarterback by the name of Wilkins Jr. I mean, that's not his first name. That's his last name, Wilkins Jr. Huh?
Manny Wilkins.
Manny. I don't know why I cannot remember Manny. So he's a quarterback. He also a little bit like Perkins. He can run a bit. He was getting a little bit more comfortable as the game was going on. This first half, we're barely going to talk about it because it was a snooze fest. It was basically 9-6 St. Louis at halftime. But when we open up the game, first drive, I think Wilkins gets a little bit more comfortable. Things going. Sailors, he's been pretty powerful all season. He's on up games and down games, but he rushed for a touchdown almost immediately. But DC, they're not giving up. Their tight end Ellis gets a touchdown catch, and they make the 2-point conversion, believe it or not. And they're actually ahead, 14-9 at this point. But St. Louis just goes up and down the field, and Gallman II has another rush TD. The 2-point conversion is in fact made. So at this point, it is. Sorry, was it 2-point conversion? Yeah, 2-point conversion. It's 17-14 St. Louis. And then DC gets the ball back, tipped pass, intercepted by St. Louis on DC's 19-yard line. So looking bad, but DC's defense not throwing in the towel. They get a stop, and it's a field goal. So, they get points, but not as many points as you want if you get the ball on somebody's 19. But it's now 20-14. We get DC not quitting, get a touchdown catch to Ty Scott with a point conversion. I mean, DC doing extra point conversions like nobody's business. By the way, the league total in extra point conversions actually went down from 3, 2, and 1 point. Doesn't matter. All of it is below 42%. So I'm not even going to bother breaking it down. It's something like 41%, 40%, and like 36% or something. Anyway, it's 21-20 at this point. DC's ahead, but Sailors with a big run, and then there's a penalty to add insult to injury. So they end up on the 2-yard line. Gallman a second rushing TD. Extra point missed. It's 26-21 at that point. Ta'amu, he gets sacked and hurt in the fourth quarter. Not only is it the fourth quarter, but DC did not get a playoff before the 2-minute warning. So they wasted sort of that. And Ta'amu was sacked with 55 seconds left. They actually got lucky because the refs reset the clock to give them 10 more seconds. Didn't really matter. There was a super challenge by DC. It was lost. They lost the timeout, but it didn't matter at this point. It was only 55 seconds. So, at this point, you had nothing to lose. And so Jalen McClendon is at quarterback if you're interested. It was 4th and out. St. Louis with a big stop there. We never got to see if there was going to be a 4th and 12 attempt here because time ran out. St. Louis is going to the playoffs. They're 6-2. DC is another one of the 1-7 teams, but they didn't give up. They also played scrappy-do football.
I've hated DC all year, and I picked them. I told you I surprised myself in picking them this week. I was just like, without AJ McCarron, like DC is going to do what DC does. They're going to defend. They don't have offense, but they defend. And they put up a fight. I mean, Manny Wilkins, he's a guy that he's more straight line speed than acceleration and agility. But he did well. He stood in the pocket. He moved around well. He was affected by Hakeem Butler getting hurt like 2 or 3 different times throughout the game. I don't know what his status is moving into next week. That would be a huge blow to them. I mean, that's a guy that had like 300-yard weeks in a row, leads the league in receiving yards. And if anybody would be the MVP over Adrian Martinez, it would go to Hakeem Butler, which just says so much because wide receivers don't get MVP. But when you look at this game, I mean, it was a scrappy, chippy game. It is a DC game. And they went into the Battle Dome and they fought the Battlehawks. And it was a very good game. I think when you look at the numbers, DC actually had more yardage than St. Louis, which is very interesting considering the final score of the game. I think St. Louis was able to play into their home field advantage. So it's going to be very interesting if AJ McCarron can't play. What do they do on the road? I mean, we've talked a lot about there not really being home field advantage, but with the backup quarterback, and especially with St. Louis's home field advantage, what is home field advantage? Are we going to find out now right before the playoffs? So I think it's very interesting to look at that. And I think just to hit on DC a little bit, I think Ta'amu, he threw the ball 40 times at about a 50% clip. And I think he only had 100-something yards. Let me cheat.
He's not good.
196 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. And those picks were more of the same. He has all the physical talent in the world, but one he threw way in front of the receiver. I think the other was just a bad pass that got tipped and right into the defender's hand. I don't know. The fact that Francois is hurt is rough. You mentioned Jalen McClendon. He came in. I believe he was a former Baylor guy, and he was very fun to watch. If this is the right guy that I'm thinking of in my head, but I think we didn't really see much of Jalen McClendon to really make any judgment. I think this at that point, their D-line was getting pressure on every play. I think DC was just mentally broken at the very end of the game, despite fighting and clawing back. And you mentioned Ty Scott at one point, and he had his best game of the year. No Kelvin Harmon, and Ty Scott was able to become that number one receiver. And we saw Chris Rowland, little number 12. I mean, he was in at running back a little bit. They put him in the slot again. I mean, they had guys stepping up. They did what they could do. They kept playing good defense, which is as common as we get with DC. And all the same, just as common with DC, they took another L. And so I don't know. I can't believe I took DC, but I can't say I'm disappointed. I mean, the game kind of played out the way I expected it to.
Well, the problem with shields up, there's that poll that says that the 90% of men think about the Roman Empire every single day of their lives. And I'm not sure that's true with me, though it has been true ever since I heard that quote, just because I think about that quote every day. However, going to the Roman Empire, the thing about when you have your shields up is that you have to have your spearmen behind you with the spears out, and you have to have the legionnaires or the centurions with their short swords down. So that's the whole thing. You have the heroes up, butt them, and if the guy goes back that way, the spearman goes like that. If he goes like that, the short sword cuts him in the Achilles. And that's how you win without taking casts. So spears up is only half of the equation, fellows. So that's your free coaching advice from me for future years.
I'm good if I'm in war in the trenches now.
Damn right. So there's another piece of discourse going on out there, and I know this doesn't go into our game necessarily, but there's a lot of people complaining that the difference between the Fox commentary and ESPN commentary, that ESPN is so much inferior and tanking it. I don't know if this extends to ABC. I have to be honest with you. I don't pay that much attention to commentary because they're always talking about gambling, but I find the format of the games, it's very formulaic. I don't find much different between network to network. They have the same order. They talk to the military personnel at the same time. Both of the sideline reporters basically are beautiful California blonde-looking women. I mean, it's I feel like it's all sort of the same. It's just the official and the review booth, and they're both quite good. So is this just me not paying attention to commentary, or is this people looking for something to complain about?
I think I'm with you. People always look for something to complain about, and I can't say I see much of a difference. I think ESPN might not have their bigger names, which might be the kind of the root for the concern, where Fox is kind of having maybe slightly bigger names, but they're also not using their A teams. So I have nothing to complain about. Personally, for me, when I'm listening to the broadcast, I'm listening in for really the ref's point of view mainly. And I like to try and hear the on-field stuff. I like hearing the play calls and trying to figure out what the play is going to be before it actually happens, which is kind of cool, something that they do in the UFL that you don't see anywhere else. But I think it's kind of all the same, and I think people always want to complain.
I think that you're right about that. I mean, yes, Kurt Menefee is a bigger name because he replaced James Brown on the NFL today, for 1 year. I mean, but I don't think he's a superstar. Meanwhile, one thing about that, I mean, that brought my attention. Something happened during the Houston game. The sideline reporter. I forget if it's Kayla Burton or if it's the other woman. That's not important. The important thing is they were talking to Reed Sinnett, who was out at quarterback at the time because of performance, but they were asking him what the quarterback was going to be doing. And first of all, you could see that he really wanted his team to do well, and he was really pulling for the quarterback. But you could also see how well he knew his offensive line and he knew the defense, because he's like, yeah, right now he's looking to see what that linebacker is going to do, and it looks like he's going to do I think they're going to do a play action. They're going to go for it, and it's exactly what happened. Like, he knew what the plays were, he knew what the variations were, he knew what to look for in the defense, and that was great. So whether or not Reed Sinnett could be a more effective quarterback given a full season or on a better team or whatever, he knows his stuff. And just by that, I mean, maybe every quarterback is supposed to know that, but that was sort of uncanny to me. And like, if you are a college and you're looking for like a quarterback's coach or an offensive coordinator or assistant coach, maybe you look at him and you feel like you're getting a bargain. A lot of times it's the backup catcher, which ends up being the best manager in baseball. The backup I think there's more backup quarterbacks that are head coaches in the NFL than starting quarterbacks.
Oh yeah,
because backup quarterbacks don't make $100 million, but still, I was impressed by
a student of the games.
Well, you are a former backup quarterback. So you tell me, am I impressed over something I should be impressed with, or is that just what's expected of you?
I mean, I'll say it's fully what it's expected. And look, I only played at the high school level. I didn't make it to college. High school backup quarterbacks typically.
That's right. Ohio State University. I know. Remember.
The Ohio State University. And maybe it's just my competitive nature, but when I was a backup quarterback, every single day in school, when I was watching film, because the quarterback's always getting those questions in the film room. When you're strategizing, questions always going to the quarterback. They're either drawing on the board, they're having to verbalize it to the coach and to the team, and they're always put on the spot in front of a group. And so as a backup, you always want to be prepared. If that moment ever becomes yours, you don't want to be the obvious burden. I mean, you want to inspire confidence, because if everybody's confident, they're going to play better around you, and it's going to better make you look good. So I think it comes with the territory. I mean, from day one as a quarterback, that expectation. That the burden is on you to know what everybody's job is on the field. And that's not just your team, that's the other team. And I think that's what makes you a better quarterback. And I think that's why you see a lot of backups have successful coaching careers. And, talk me and toot my horn, I had to go and help my defense when we were in need due to injuries, and I played some linebacker, and I am not built for linebacker at all. But I was able to be successful because I knew exactly what was going on in the field, and I was able to help communicate, which helped our defense. But what's going on?
Yeah, we're excited to have the excitement. And so that's great. So, folks, here you get it from our own insider, former backup quarterback for the University of Alabama, actually played behind A.J. McCarron and dated his wife's younger sister. So all of that is 100% true, and you're getting it only here. So apparently I was impressed by what is just presumed to be the backup, sometimes starting quarterback's job anyway. But all right, so enough about me on this. So back to Arlington at San Antonio, our last game. You already heard my charming story about bowling and Baron Corbin. Same story here. San Antonio win, and they're in. Like a lot of the other games, who's the quarterback? We don't know. Quinton Dormandy is back in at starting quarterback for San Antonio. Probably good news. Some people were saying that they think Chase Garbers is going to be back next week. I'm not sure if you put him in. I think maybe you stick with Dormandy. They've had a fair amount of success with whomever. But anyway, let's get into the game. So we have both this. I believe this is the only game where both Lovett and McFarland were active. That may not be correct, but they were both certainly active on the field. There was early run in the game by McFarland, and then a swing pass to McFarland, and he took that touchdown catch. He ran through everybody, 52 yards, basically in the opening drive. San Antonio does strange things all the time, and some of those things are spectacular. And they're the most interesting team to watch because they're so chaotic and they're so unpredictable, except they seem to manage to win. They have the same record as St. Louis and Michigan, but they play so differently, except that their defense is tenacious. I mean, given their colors, they are sort of like the killer bees. I mean, they're sort of undersized and fly around all over the place.
And that's kind of become their thing. But I'm happy you paused because Sportcat put a comment on the screen, and I want to hear him satisfy the fans' needs.
It's the best I got.
Wow, that was so reminiscent of Catwoman. I believe that was a more Michelle Pfeiffer than a Halle Berry or the Kravitz girl. So woman, sorry. All right, so back to the game. So it's 7-0. We have San Antonio playing a stout defense basically through the entire half. Ellison, who's the third running back, he's in there, so he's active. He's sort of like a bull. He sort of his game is mostly go down the middle. Though at some point they had him go to the side when they had the strong big lineup in. It was set just to go straight on in, and they refused to do this for reasons I can't possibly understand. Every time you think you're going to trick a defense, like 9 out of 10 times, you don't trick the defense. Anyway, San Antonio scores a field goal, so it's 10-0. Again, Arlington can't convert anything. Luis Perez looks unflappable, but I just don't know if he lacks emotion, period. San Antonio gets the ball again. Another field goal. It's 13-0. Looks like it's going to be a blowout. Arlington does manage to convert a field goal. And then we have a second touchdown catch by McFarland, a successful extra point conversion for 1, and it's 20-3 at the half. And we think that we're going to get a laugher from San Antonio. But that is just not the way the UFL works, which maybe is a good thing because no game is necessarily ever quite over. There have been very few blowouts, and ironically, one of them was, in fact, Arlington last week with its 1 win of the year, which I picked. I think you picked it also.
I did, and then I picked them this week as well.
Yeah, okay, well, I saw a lot of people getting sort of bitten by that. And listen, I was not feeling confident in the San Antonio, and guess what? They gave me reason not to be confident. So anyway, the second half, you have Lindsey Scott coming in at quarterback, and I know there's going to be a lot of you should just start Lindsey Scott the rest of the season. And, Luis Perez has great numbers except for wins and losses this year. But I think you do have to start Lindsey Scott to give you what you want to see what he's going to give you. And in this case, he had a 30-yard run. Now, this is not just a 30-yard run. This is not like where Adrian Martinez or like a Lamar Jackson someone finds an open seam and just keeps on going. No, he runs for like maybe 7 or 8 yards and nobody can tackle him. Literally, he's moving forward and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on him and he just keeps moving forward. You think he's like, who? You think he was Christian Okoye from Kansas City 25 years ago? I mean, or like Bam Morris or Natrone Means or Bam Morris, or not Bam Morris. Well, I said that, all right. Jerome Bettis, like some gigantic, Sam Gash. Anyway, I don't need to list every big running back of all time. This is a rather small quarterback, and he is just moving the pocket. I swear at probably 15 to 20 yards of it at least was him just going forward and refusing to be tackled. And the refs, to their credit, didn't whistle it dead. Usually you try and protect the quarterback, but he was never stopped. He's just moving forward. And they're letting him. I mean, I know they're not letting him on purpose, but like, you're allowed to hit somebody above the knee. You can hit their thigh. I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, it was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Anyway, that results in a Canella TD catch, extra point missed. It's 9-20 at this point. San Antonio still ahead. Arlington, there's a punt for Arlington. Arlington's player touches the ball. I think he intended the fair catch or just let it drop, but it touches him. Almost was disastrous, but he manages to recover it. So Arlington averts disaster. So you're feeling, hey, maybe things are changing. Maybe the worm is turning him. Maybe Arlington's got some go on it, but not so much. And at this point, San Antonio gets the ball back. Corey Latimer, by the way, is all over this game. He had like 6 passes for 110 yards. I think he had at least a 7th for another 15 or 20 yards. But at some point, he scores a touchdown, but there was an offensive penalty which recalled the touchdown. That was annoying. And then San Antonio missed a field goal. So it's still 20-9. We then have a 4th and a short stop. Pretty controversial because if you looked at the forward progress, pretty good argument that he made the first down. There was no super challenge. I probably would have super challenged it if I was Arlington because really you have nothing to lose. But Bob Stoops, I don't know, maybe he's trying to pitchfork and torch himself. I'm not sure. And then San Antonio gets the ball back, and they go for another field goal and miss a second field goal overall. What's his name, Santoso?
Yeah.
Well, the Saints were not with Santoso this day, my friends, because he missed 2 field goals. Very unlike the UFL kickers, period. Very unlike Santoso, pretty consistent guy. So Arlington gets the ball back, a touchdown pass to Peyton. The 2-point extra point attempt is missed naturally. At this point, it's 20-15. There is very little time left in the game, so Arlington doesn't convert on 4th down, but they do opt for their 4th and 12, an obvious call at this time to go for 4th and 12, and they get sacked. So 4th and 12, nothing, but San Antonio made themselves work for it. I would say that Arlington hung in there, but San Antonio really tried to cost themselves the game, but still managed not to. But I guess good teams find ways to win and bad teams find ways to lose, sort of.
That's a good way to put it. And shout out to Josh Dory. Definitely will have Game 7 on later. Probably will watch the third period. Great series between Edmonton and Vancouver so far. It's been very back and forth. But I guess, yeah, you can put that out there, and good teams win hard, tight games. I mean, I think when you look at it, Anthony McFarland coming back was major for San Antonio. He had 118 receiving yards, 113 of them came after the catch. I mean, that's unbelievable. He showed his speed. His speed hasn't lost anything. I mean, that University of Maryland, shout out Anthony McFarland. I mean, he had a great game, and they, like you mentioned, I mean, John Lovett still had a good workload, and they included Ellison, and they were all able to get success. And I think that's their key moving forward, is making it easy for Dormady or Garbers if Garbers comes back. I mean, neither of these guys is the most accredited quarterback in the world, so give them a good running game and then allow them to be free to throw the ball over the top. And they both got good legs, so let them use their legs and run around a little bit. But start with a running game. That's what you need to win a playoff game. Good defense and a running game. And when you're San Antonio and you got Wade Phillips as your coach, I mean, you know your defense is going to be good. And I felt like the whole game they were showing signs of being a little bit broken, but they bent and they didn't break. And their defense gave them what they need. They got blessed with a couple missed field goals. I mean, missed field goals both ways, whatever. But I don't know. I feel like for San Antonio, as the largest betting underdog going into the year, they have severely overproduced, and they've done so well this year. And this is a team that I think really is a legitimate title threat. And I think when you look at it, there's a few areas for San Antonio to clean up. They got to be more efficient in the red zone. They got to get their passing game a little bit more involved, but they're getting there very, very slowly, but very, very steadily throughout the season. And when you look at it from Arlington's point of view, I mean, they kept making me feel like they were going to win. They kept making me feel like they were going to do something. I mean, I truly thought that they were going to win this game. And this is what was blessing my eyes at the airport while I was waiting to get back to Florida. And I'm seeing Luis Perez feeling free and throwing the ball down the field. And then I see him throwing an interception and them doing absolutely nothing with it. It was like it would be one good play, one bad play. They couldn't consistently stay successful.
And by the way, that interception for a guy who was a pretty accurate passer, that interception, he threw it to, there was not an offensive player anywhere near that. And the only person near that was a very yellow jersey.
Yeah, and those jerseys are easy to find. I will give San Antonio their flowers. They got to Luis Perez. He's looked uncomfortable under pressure all season. He doesn't like throwing on the run, it seems like. And I think for him, it's a very mental game. I mean, he's come in and back-to-back seasons taking his team to the championship. And I think he does that with his momentum. And I think right now you can see the frustration building, and I don't want to blame the management for taking Lindsey Scott first overall and then the coaching for mixing him in and not allowing Luis Perez to ever get in a rhythm. But at this point, you have got to start Lindsey Scott. I mean, there is no reason to keep starting Luis Perez. What's going on, rocket scientist? What is for dinner? I can tell you exactly what's for dinner tonight. I've got some pasta and a nice lemon butter garlic sauce and a nice piece of grilled chicken. And it's going to be delicious, and I'm going to be fat after I make some vegetables probably and have maybe some dessert afterwards. We'll see how wild we get tonight. But back to the game, I think that I just think that for San Antonio, their future is bright, and for Arlington, they've got to try everything. Ooh, sushi. Sushi sounds like gas. But for Arlington, they've just got to do whatever they've got to do. They've got to try and find a way to see some sort of promise going into next year. See if you got some players that might be able to stick with you. Try and get these guys that have NFL potential, a shot at it, and let's move on to next season, because it's been a rough go of it for the Renegades.
It sure has. And just a few notes from the close of Week 8. We have 3 teams that are 1-7, which is embarrassing. DC is officially eliminated from the playoffs, and the playoff picture with San Antonio and St. Louis is still unclear. They have the same record. I believe one has a win over the other, but that division, it's unlike where Birmingham and Michigan, the positions pretty much no matter what, Birmingham wins that division, and Michigan is in the second position. St. Louis and San Antonio very much still up for grabs. Big question mark with St. Louis is, will McCarron play quarterback or not, or will they rally around the youngster? Can Hakeem Butler, who has a tendency to get hit in the ribs and get hurt for a while when he gets hit in the ribs, I mean, that's, if there's a hole in his game, he's a little bit brittle. He's long and lean. But he's been long and lean as long as he's played football, and Randy Moss was long and lean also and didn't miss a lot of games. Hakeem Butler, I don't think he's missed a lot of games, but he misses with times. What's my favorite? Sody? You know what? This is going to probably, you know what? If I don't drink a lot of soda, I try to limit myself to one soda a week. But so I really enjoy a Coke. If I only have a Coke a week, I think it tastes absolutely delicious. But if I had to pick one, I'm going to go with a Dr. Brown's cream soda. You just can't beat it. So, yep. San Antonio, 6-2. They have won 3 games in 3 very strange ways. 2 basically by last moment miracles. This one by the other team basically doing everything it could do to not win the game, plus a good defensive stand. But that's our week. That's the week in football. I, of course, went 4-0. How did you do this week?
I believe it was the 3rd week in a row at 2-2. Can't say I'm proud of it. Can't say I'm too terribly surprised. I think
you can be proud of your old man.
I keep taking sleeper picks. I keep having hope in the wrong teams, the wrong players, and I keep getting my 2 confident picks right and my 2 toss-ups wrong.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Very good. All right. Well, speaking of that, well, there's a question, but speaking of that, if Sportscat will pull it up, what are our games next week? And we'll do our picks. Panthers and Rangers. I have no idea. I don't follow hockey. I'm not from Canada.
You know what? That's actually a very good game. Those are 2 teams that I've probably followed the most in the playoffs. Capitals got demolished. And then so, I got friends that are Panthers fans. I got friends that are Rangers fans. So those are the 2 teams that have had my attention. And the Rangers are a very, very interesting team. I think they might be the better team, but I think the Panthers can score goals in bunches. So I give me Rangers in 7, but the Panthers are going to look very good in this series.
Okay, look at that.
Did you see that the college hockey putt that what is it called? A goal. Boy, I'm sorry. Yeah, he did a putt. He did a goal. No, the goal where it looked like he had stickum on it, and he came up on the high side and over. They said that's like the greatest shot ever. Did you all see that?
Yeah, I mean, crazy goal. And honestly, the playoffs have been pretty fun to watch. All told, I think there's been some really crazy highlights and some impressive things.
Yes.
Actually, I'm more of a Nashville fan, but they suck. So,
well, you just like all Predators, including Sportscats.
That's right. Well, week 9 we have the Battlehawks versus the Renegades, so that will be, of course, in Arlington.
Yeah. The question is McCarron, but I don't really think it changes my answer. I'm going to go with KAR. Ka is the law. I'm going to go with St. Louis. I don't think it matters if they're in Arlington. No one's been showing up to those games. Nobody will show up to those games. And Luis Perez, if he ever looked like someone who had a fire in him, it looks like the fire is out.
And back to that talk about maybe a Florida team going all over the state. Maybe let's move one of the Texas teams to California and one to like Ohio or New York and let them travel around. And let's just have one team there because and they can travel around too. But with that said, St. Louis Battlehawks, I think the only way Arlington can win this game is if Lindsey Scott comes in and nobody expects it and their defense isn't prepared and AJ McCarron misses the game and then Lindsey Scott plays perfect. I think it's going to be very, very hard for Arlington to do it at this point. I've had trust in them all year, and they've let me down time after time. And even if Hakeem Butler is hurt, even if AJ McCarron's out, I have confidence in St. Louis, and I think that the odds makers will as well. I think if AJ McCarron's back, you might see St. Louis as like minus 1,000 favorites. It'll be something crazy.
Yeah, St. Louis is a very balanced team. They have a very tenacious defense. They have a very dynamic offense when McCarron's in there, but honestly, Perkins did a pretty good job, and he got better as the game went on. But all right, so we're in agreement on that. St. Louis. What's next up there, Sportscat?
Birmingham at San Antonio.
Wow.
In the Alamodome.
This is a fun game.
It sure is. Wow. Okay. I like San Antonio a lot. They're a lot of fun to watch. They do a whole lot of things. Birmingham has not been playing their best football the last couple of weeks. They have a lot of things to straighten out. It's a possible championship game preview, but San Antonio, just too many things have gone right for them to win too many games. I think Birmingham straightens out. They fixed their special teams this week. I think they're going to fix some of their other stuff this week. Maribel wasn't in the game. I don't think Birmingham loses this game. I think they advance to 9-0. I don't think that Martinez sits this week either. I think that Michigan is still too close in their rearview mirror. And he's going for an MVP also. And he didn't play 2 games. And I think that, the whole team is probably pulling from get the MVP. And maybe part of them regret him not playing those 2 games so that he could have those stats there. And I think they're going to make it up to him. As long as he's safe, I think he'll be in the game. So I'm going to go with Birmingham.
Yeah, and this is a really fun game, a really intriguing game. I mean, these are 2 teams that are playoff bounds, definitely a championship potential matchup. And it's hard for me because that unknown of, are they going to bench people? What is going to be the team that's actually going to show up? And I think with the Brahmas, is it Dormady? Is it Garbers? I mean, it goes both ways. Both teams, there's a lot of unknowns. I like how the Brahmas offense looks with Anthony McFarland. And that might make me I told myself going into this, be smart. Don't pick the risky sides of the toss-ups, but let's have some fun here. I don't know. The Brahmas looked good. I love Wade Phillips. Birmingham, I feel like, is bound for a loss. They might do something stupid like start Matt Corral, even though you have the MVP who's been slinging it and running and killing it. Yeah, let me go against the grain. Let me take the Brahmas here. Anthony McFarland had a breakout game, and I think he's only going to keep doing more and more with time. So let me go with the Brahmas.
McFarland looked great this week. He sure did. That's what I think they've been wanting to. They've seen sparks of it, but I think this was the first full complete game.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a disagreement there. So we know that we're not going to have the same record this week going in. So that's exciting.
Always is.
Yeah. Okay, Top Cat, what's next?
So a question. Can you have a tie game in the UFL?
Well, Bottom Cat, Jake, you should watch what you're saying. Top Cat's an old cartoon where he was like the gang leader of the stray cats, and he's Top Cat. He's like, I'm Top Cat here. See, I'm Top Cat around here.
You're showing your age. So can you have a tie game in the UFL? Is it possible?
I believe it is possible because I think the rules are that you have 3 successive. I know that they alternate.
I don't think so. 3. I'm pretty sure it's designed that if it goes to overtime, there will be a winner, and it'll go until it can't go anymore. I'm pretty sure. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
I'm gonna go with a tie. DC Defenders at Memphis.
At 0-0.
Yeah.
Quite awesome.
Yeah, and it'll be a bunch of missed extra points.
Oh wow, DC Defenders
get a touchdown.
Yeah, this game is surprisingly hard for me because I've been saying all year that Memphis is the worst professional football team I have ever seen, but I'm not sure that that's correct anymore. And it's at Memphis. I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I'm picking Memphis.
I was about to say pick DC. I dare you.
Yeah.
No Te'amu, 3rd-string quarterback. DC, I think, has lost all hope. I'm also taking Memphis here. I hope that they show Josh Love again. I hope that they find a way to get their running game started. But regardless, I like their receivers enough. Papele and Josh Adams. Not Josh Adams. Jonathan Adams and what's his face? The tight end.
Morticia Adams.
Sage Surratt. Yes. And their defense has been very solid all year. Like everybody.
I actually think his name. What's Victor's first name? I want to say Jack Victor, but that's the Canadian suit designer.
Darius, their running back.
Darius Victor. So Darius Victor, I actually believe if there was an offense around him, that he's a good running back. Like I see him go to the right places. I see him strong. I see his legs moving. Listen, there's a lot of guys like that in the UFL, like Hagens and whatever, that look like they could be good and they just aren't. But I blame everything else on everything else around Memphis. No one looks good there. But I think that this may be that Jack Victor may play Jack Victor. Yes, Jack Victor is going to make them all designer suits. No, Darius Victor is going to surprise everyone with a game. I think they are going to show some love. I heard what you did there earlier. That was clever. And yeah, I'm going to go with Memphis. I cannot believe it. I may even have to wear my Memphis Showboats shirt next week.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that, I think that what Darius Victor brings to the table is the fact that he can play 3 downs. He can pass block, he can run out wide, he can run power, he can pass catch. He can do a little bit of everything, and that's very important. I think that their defense has been all year, and I think DC's defense has been better all year. But I think if you're telling me it's going to be Jalen McClendon versus for his first start, really his first real playing time, versus it doesn't matter who their quarterback is, a backup quarterback who's played multiple times this year. Give me the team that has that continuity, especially if they're at home.
You know who else can play 3 downs?
Oh,
me. I just can't play the rest of the game.
I was going to say, I don't know if it's 3 and you might have a heart attack.
Well, I'm not successfully, not consecutive downs. Just 3 total. All right, Glenn, what do you got for our last game? Tiger Cat.
Michigan Panthers versus the Houston Roughnecks at Rice Stadium.
Yeah,
it's a 2:30 game.
Michigan, Houston, they play tight, stingy defense, but Michigan just does what it has to do. It's very, very reminiscent of the 1980s Giants, maybe the late 90s, early 2000 Ravens and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They tenacious defense. I mean, not as good as those teams, of course, because it's the UFL, not the NFL. Offenses just do enough to win, and the defenses don't give up enough points to as long as they don't make big mistakes. And Michigan hasn't made big mistakes. I'm not sure that they make any mistakes. I mean, losing West Hills can't possibly be good, but I don't know. Colburn did fine, and they have another back also who spells him, but I don't. They're just a professional team. I think that if Mike Nolan put me in as running back, they might do okay. Well, that's probably an exaggeration, but you get the point. They just go about their business and play well. So Michigan.
Well, I don't know if you could tell by my cheese while you were talking, but I think I'm going to do something stupid. I'm going to go against the grain with one of my toss-ups, and this might be setting you up for another 4-0 week with me with another 2-2 week. But I don't know if I'm going to take Michigan here. They clinched their playoff spot, correct?
Yep. Yep. And they can't leapfrog Birmingham.
So I could be thinking too much into it, but I think Houston has more to play for. For the 4th week in a row, I'm going to buy into this Mark Thompson effect. Maybe he'll help them win a game here. I think Michigan with a backup quarterback and Jake Bates in a cold slump, I think you're giving a team like Houston, who, despite being terrible, have at least been competitive, and their defense is always in the game, and you're talking about a defense-first team. I don't know. I want to take Houston here. And when I look at it and I think about it, it doesn't sound smart or logical. And I'm going to defy it. I'm going to defy it all. I think especially if they put Nolan Henderson there, he's hungry. It kind of reminds me of an outfielder with the way he's so fast and he slings the ball. An outfielder in baseball. And I don't know. Kiki Chisholm keeps making plays. Justin Hall keeps making plays. Give me Houston here in an upset that I think you'll see a very motivated team with nothing to lose versus a team that's comfortable. And so I think it'll be very, very low scoring, probably very sloppy, very boring. Choose your 2:30 Sunday Fox game accordingly if you get the option between both of these.
Are they playing against each other simultaneously again? Are they doing that thing again?
That is correct.
I have no idea what is the thought process. Well, I guess the Fox Friday night games.
They have crap versus crap. I mean, No offense to any of these teams, but DC versus Memphis and Michigan versus Houston. I mean, these are fun sounding games.
Yeah, but you're competing against yourself. I mean, which is which is dopey. If you're going to get 700,000 now, you're going to get 500,000 for each or whatever. Anyway, the Friday night games will resolve this. I'm confident or hopeful. In any event, I'm going to say something even stupider when you said, because they're playing at Rice University. Rice is for sumo wrestlers, not for football players. You can't win if you're eating rice. You're playing at Rice University. Houston plays there. Can't win there. Rice is not for football. The end.
Wow.
Rice
is Michigan. That's right. It's science. That's logic. Not just a hat holder, my friends.
I found this graphic I was going to show you that is a prediction for next season. You said no expansion.
Well,
that looks a little odd.
There's lots of predictions. And the one thing I've heard, though, listen, I don't know who's a source and who's not a source in this league, but the one thing I've heard is that California and New York are out of the question. They're both too expensive. And I see two teams there in California. I've heard Seattle and Portland as possibilities. I've heard Pittsburgh. I've heard Philadelphia getting the Stars back, New Jersey getting the Generals back, and Orlando getting the Guardians back. And for some reason, Nashville, but I think the Memphis thing is over that. Also, look at the geographic difference of where these teams are. I mean, I know Seattle is further, but I just have to believe that like every dollar is counting in this league. And I'm thinking that places that you can drive to or take quick flights rather than 5 or 6 hour flights, and you can do it in the same day as opposed to staying over in a hotel. I think all of that plays a factor in that, and shorter distances. I don't know. Maybe they're not that cheap. I don't know what the business model is, but I'm hearing no to California. But listen, I hope that I'm hearing incorrect. I hope that it's useless noise, because these are both great towns and big cities with big TV. Not the greatest of fan bases necessarily, but big TV, and and it's fun.
California.
Yeah, in California.
People would love a team back. Oakland would love a team back. And I'll keep saying it. I feel like it's lost some heat since the beginning of the year, but Canton, I mean, that is where football, that's the foundation of football. People in Ohio love football. Maybe it doesn't need to be Canton. They already have Cleveland and Cincinnati. I mean, there are cities that are equipped to handle a team.
Columbus?
That's true.
Yeah, Columbus too. I mean, it's a football state. I would love to see something there. So, yeah, it's at the Bulldogs.
Kentucky in the mix, though.
And Ohio is close to Western Pennsylvania, which has very much, almost as much football history, especially quarterbacks, as Ohio does. So, hey, it's a easy little drive. Hey, it's an easy drive for West Virginia too, for our very own Shea Asylum.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Right.
I had never heard Kentucky thrown in the mix, though. That was one that threw me off.
A little surprising. Kentucky again, big football state though. I wouldn't be opposed.
Louisville's a nice town. Listen, Louisville is just across the river from Cincinnati, so it's really and Lexington isn't that far, which isn't a big city, but it's basically a 3-city market.
It's a fun, beautiful city.
Yeah, they like to arrest golfers there, so it'll be a good place.
And I had the best veal chop of my life at an Italian restaurant in Louisville. It was like a stegosaurus. It was. I can believe me. I was as surprised as anybody. I said to the guy, "Goes, this is fantastic," and he's like, "Oh, thank you very much, sir. Please come again." And then that's my Italian accent, by the way, which all of my accents sound vaguely Macedonian. I'm not telling you whether it's Balkan Macedonia or Greek Macedonia, because it doesn't matter, because my accent is that bad. So you can guess. I hope that restaurant is still there. I don't remember the name of it, but if you serve the greatest veal chop and you're an Italian restaurant in Louisville, you know who you are, and I still think it's great. And become a fan. Send me your information, and we will promote your show. You can sponsor us too, but it's cheap to sponsor us. So what's it only like $1 million for 30 seconds, Glenn? Is that right?
I think it gets him a minute. I'm feeling generous.
Well,
this is Tom Brady.
Yeah, Glenn is our business manager, so you can talk to him. He can make those big decisions.
This ship's not going to right itself.
And Glenn's going to send it to Shay. So we already know how this one's
Yeah,
going.
exactly. Shay will handle it. So we've already got a message out to a professional player during this broadcast, actually.
Ooh.
So,
Well, listen, I've sent messages to professional players. Nobody's responded. But
I let Shay do it. She has some things that we don't. So she has a talent that we do not have.
I'm not going to ask you to elaborate on that at all. I'm sure what you mean is charm and personality.
Absolutely. I don't know what you were thinking.
But Jake is very, very personable. He's very charming.
Do your homework. There's some conspiracy theories going on Reddit around week 10 in the UFL.
Well, yeah, well, let's hear it. I mean, we're not on fuel, so we're not limited to an hour.
Yes, yeah, we are not on fuel. I confirm that, by the way. There's some conspiracies that it's also the same as the playoffs, and that it was rigged.
It's not a conspiracy. It's actually working out that way. I don't think it's rigged because I don't think anybody saw this coming.
I would disagree. I think they kind of probably tried to put what they envisioned some of the best teams and best games being at week 10 to kind of drive the hype for the playoffs. I don't think that they thought that there'd be this much differential from the top and the bottom of the league, but I'm pretty certain when they were making those schedules, they said week 10, we need to put some of our best matchups out there. Just turns out that those are the two best teams in both conferences.
But I just think that preseason, that people thought that DC and Arlington were going to be a whole lot better.
And that could be possible too. Maybe they thought they were setting up, some of the other teams at the top. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. The Brahmas seemed like a pretty good team to me the whole way.
They did to you, but they didn't to me, and they've surprised me. And then, I don't want to go back to our early weeks because I got so much wrong.
That's when I did much better.
Yeah, including facts. I just got some facts on like kickoff rules and things like that. So, I take no pride in my wrongitude. What's that?
Name pronunciations were rough too.
Oh my God, yeah, yeah. I mean, got so much better during the season. Though my picks have been rock solid. So that's what I'm going to hold on to maybe the rest of my life. Because who knows if I'll ever have this kind of batting average again.
Is there like a LIPP MEN trophy for this or anything? Just curious.
It's called the Sportcat, and it's coming from you.
I thought you were sponsoring it.
Yeah,
me.
It's like a golden. It's like a golden cap, like the kind of thing that would get you, like, burned by the Israelites in Sinai or whatever.
That's horrible. I'm sure we could come up. We'll get Shay to come up with some underwear or something for you. So.
Terrific!
She loves selling underwear.
That's exactly right. To have a woman send me a pair of underwear, it's like tell me you want to kill me without telling me you want to kill me.
It's just friends do.
You know my wife is from South America, right?
I've been told, yeah.
Okay. I mean, okay. Listen. Just stand in line with people who want me dead, so it's fine. I mean, once AEW doesn't get renewed, I'm somehow going to be personally to blame for that. So,
well, I got to get you convinced to watch a new reality TV show this season. So that's all.
Well, once AEW goes off the air, maybe I'll have plenty of time.
And maybe I can convince Jake to come on and do a interview with Miranda. So,
who's Miranda?
I'd be down.
Oh, I know. Right? Yeah, he should be down.
Miranda Maverick, yeah.
Yeah,
Miranda Fear the Maverick.
That's right.
That's
Copy that. Absolutely. You the two of you should absolutely arrange that, and I think that would be awesome. And
she fights in July, so I'm trying to get it booked before then. So
definitely should. That would be awesome.
Interviews beget interviews. That's one thing I've learned.
It's true. So, and Jake would know all the right fight questions. I just ask about pickles. So.
Simple
pickle company. So
I know I shouldn't ask this, but what would your question about pickles be?
Well, I would ask what the best pickle is that she has, but I already know it's the spicy.
What's her half sour? That's easy.
Well, she may make a great one. I don't know. Miranda, here I'm plugging her stuff, but she owns her own pickle company, Prowler Pickles. Look them up; they're actually pretty dang good.
Sounds like a sponsor to me.
Yeah, it could be. You never know. So
you got some space all over the screen, over down there.
If she wants to meet that hunk right there, It's going to cost her some pickles.
Personally, I'm not a fan of pickles, so
I think she makes spicy
them out to
pickles.
you guys.
Thank you. That's terrific. It'll be great for us to share. It'll go to Glenn in Atlanta, and I'm sure he'll make it very easy to share with me. That's great. We're like equidistant from him.
Yeah, no kidding. Right in the middle between you guys. I'll kind of keep you separated. So
that's right. That's exactly what you are. You are the ref. You're like the field ref. What do they call the ref that on tennis on the line ref by the net? Center court ref.
Line judge.
Line judge. It's not like the back line. All right. So you're like the line judge. So perfect. All right. Very good. Good job. Good job, Glenn, refereeing and keeping us apart as always, because I'm going to tear his head off, except his head's on that side. So wait, my hand disappeared. Jake, you and your goddamn Doctor Strange magic. What wizardry is this? But ow.
All right. Well, so Jake, you're gonna get. Have you got anything going on the next week?
No, just life, living life, getting ready for my new job in a month. But follow me on Twitter. Thank you. But follow me on Twitter. Throw an underscore right there in between my first and last name. Find me on Twitter. Haven't really been active of late, but we're gonna get back active in the coming days. But appreciate everybody for tuning in and choosing to hang out with us and talk a little UFL football. Off to the 7-minute plug.
That's this why I was gonna let him go last. Go ahead, Jeff. Where can we find you? What do you got going on?
All right. Well, on Twitter X at ErkersfellMD, if you want the regular me, if you want the misbehaving me, Evil Dose at Garden of Doom, and if you want to listen to my podcasts about all sorts of variety things, Garden of Doom is the primary one. Recent episodes included an episode on the Mayans. And this week I had an episode where I interviewed a horror author, content creator, filmmaker, the whole shebang. She's got stuff on Shudder. She's done it all. And Garden Views is a show that's same sort of variety, but more grounded. And this week we're going back into space with a gentleman named Chris Carberry. He's written quite a bunch of books, including Beer in Space and Music in Space. He's interviewed about 30 astronauts, and he also is the executive director of Explore Mars, a not-for-profit, which maybe can do some work with Space Corps Foundation, which is a not-for-profit I'm involved with. So that could be cool. And I have lined up a few more international attorneys to talk about space and space policies from their various parts of the world. So that's fun, and some other stuff too. I've got a former, well, maybe current, but model, TV news anchor, author, all sorts of stuff going on Garden Views and Garden of Doom. I am booked tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Tomorrow, my parents, Jake's grandparents, are going to be in town. But Wednesday, I'm recording with Reverend Jim Willis, who is terrific, a prolific author, one of the greatest men I know. And he's going to start on the First Nations. It's actually going to be a very easy Garden of Doom where I do almost nothing. And he's going to actually tell the stories the way he was taught to tell them by the shamans and the chiefs, playing the right music. And it's just going to be a thing of beauty. It's not going to be Garden of Doom. It's going to be Garden of Awesomeness whenever I drop that show. And that's cool. And we're going to do as many of those as we can for different regions. Hammerlock Hangover is my wrestling podcast. We haven't done our episode for this week, so we're, since last Thursday, but we will. You can sometimes find me on a popular review, but I'm telling you, I'm skipping the Raw show tonight. I just don't have the energy in me. What else? I don't know. That's probably enough, right? I mean, I might do other stuff, but I think I'm doing a Garden of the Superior this Saturday afternoon. Oh, on the Hameen Media Group and the PWC, I'm covering for Smack Attack again on the Mighty Hameen Media Groups / Channel Attitude, Vince Russo's outfit with the Ayatollah bin Hameen, Yala, and Smack Attack. That's 11 o'clock Eastern. Crash. What's that?
I thought he just died in a helicopter crash.
No, that's different. That was the president. It wasn't the Ayatollah. The Ayatollah always gets away, especially this Ayatollah. Different Ayatollah altogether. And Saturday afternoon, a Garden of the Superior with the great Steve the Superior. And we're going to cover the Huns and with some emphasis probably on a guy named Attila. So, yeah, I got a lot of stuff going on. And Humming Media Group,
You're
YouTube, everywhere, and the Garden of the Superior will be on Unpopular View Entertainment. So, whew, or just don't follow
You're
me.
a popular man.
Well, I mean, I'm sure between all of those things combined, 17 people will consume that media.
What's 17 more than you had? All right. Well, you can find me tomorrow spinning hits on the Thin Line Rock Station, www. The Thin Line Rock Station, from noon until 2. Do that Tuesday and Thursday. Friday, they got me doing from 6 p to 11 this flashback thing. So I'm doing a little disco. I'm finding some music from the 50s for your dad, Jake. So, little doo-wop. So we got that going on there. The paranormal guys, Wednesday night, I got a reporter and West Coast paranormal investigator. I just got an author who confirmed just a few minutes ago, so I'll have to size that up. And then Friday's the Grading Guardian gang. So they talk about sports and challenge coins and public safety and all kinds of cool things. So you can tune in there. In fact, I want to talk about your astronaut, people getting them to come over there. And then Saturday is the Misfits, where we just get a little crazy and, sometimes get banned for 48 hours because of Tom Brady. It's a thing. But other than that, that's all I got going on. I'm not that big of a deal anymore. So.
Oh, that's sad. I thought you were, but listen, I'm riding your coattails. I'm totally clout chasing. So get your big a deal in this back up there so that, this is, worth my while to be a parasite.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for vacation. There's a beach in my future somewhere. All right, we all will be back for next week. The lawyer will have an answer about the tie because I'm still going with the tie game. Okay. We'll talk more about the conspiracy next week because I'm going to research it. I believe that could be a thing.
Okay, good.
Like the WWE.
We love your input, Glenn. The more Glenn, the better the show.
It would make the sense that The Rock would have a scripted football league.
That is what I'm thinking. Until next week, ladies.
We're in the Matrix.
That's right. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Please remember to thumbs up, like, follow, and subscribe. And as always, the Sportcat shows can be replayed at any time on YouTube.
We are our own Anunnaki.